Hey guys, and welcome to Gopherwood. So when it comes to movement in Unity, that's such a broad topic, it's hard to know where to get started. So that's why I made this video for you guys, to help you understand the different types of ways you can move in Unity, and whether you're moving a player or an AI or just an object, and I'll show you which way you should be using depending upon what you're trying to do. Alright, let's hop into it. Okay guys, so when it comes to movement in Unity, there's really going to be four basic types of movement that you're going to want to be using. There's transform.translate, vector3.moveTowards, rigidbody.addForce, and character controller. So in this video, I'm going to help you try to connect the dots as to which one you should be using, dependent upon what you're trying to do. Alright, so transform.translate is really as easy as movement gets in Unity. This is just if you want an object to move in a specific direction at a specific speed. So the transform, in this case, would be our player, so we need to make a reference to that. So that would be a public transform, and we'll just call it player. And then down here in the update, we'll say player dot translate. So since with capital T here. So since our player is a transform here, then what we've essentially written down here is transform dot translate. And this is going to take some parameters. The first parameter you're going to want to give it is the direction you want to go. So in this case, we'll just say vector3 dot forward. And then you want to multiply this by the speed that you want the player to go. So here we'll just make a private float speed, and we'll set it equal to 3.0 f. You have to put an f at the end of your floats for some reason. I'm not really sure why. Alright, so then we can multiply it by our speed. And then the last thing you're going to want to do here is multiply this by time dot delta time. And what this does is it makes it frame rate independent. So if I was playing on 100 FPS and you were playing on 200 FPS, you would move twice as fast as I would if we didn't put this line of code in here. Alright, so then the next thing we want to do is hop back into Unity. And the script that we did this on, you can call it whatever you want. We're going to want to put this script on the main camera. And then once it's there, we need to assign the player over here to our player object. And if we push play, then you should be able to see the player moving. Ta-da! But he will move infinitely because there is no gravity in the game. Alright, let's go to the next one. So the next one here is vector3.moveTowards, and this is a great one to use if you have an enemy or an AI that you want to hone in on your player's position. Alright, so go ahead and make a C# script and hop into the update and type in transform.position. So the transform.position is essentially the position of the object that this script is attached to. So if I attached it to the camera, it would be wherever the camera was, or if I attached it to the enemy, it would be wherever the enemy was. So transform.position equals vector3.moveTowards. Now this takes a few parameters, and the first one is not what you'd think, because you want to type in right here where you want it to move, but you actually first need to type in your starting position, which is the same as where you already are. So you would just type back in transform.position. Then the next parameter is where you actually want it to move to. So in our case, we'll make that the player.position. And it's right here because we have not assigned a player. So let's go up here and say public transform player. Alright, so then the player.position, and then the next parameter that you want here is your speed. So we'll go ahead and do that. We'll make a private float speed, and we'll just again set this equal to 3.0 f, and we'll multiply it by so we'll take our speed and we'll multiply this by time dot delta time. Alright, and then if we hop back into Unity The next thing we're going to want to do here is the last script here we attached to the main camera for transform.translate. But on this one here, we're going to actually attach it to the object we want to move. So in this case, that would be our enemy. And then we need to assign our player in the script. And then if we go ahead and push play, voila, we can see our enemy moving towards our player. Alright, so the next one we're going to cover is rigidbody.addForce. This covers a lot. This is any object that you want to apply force to. Alright, so a very crucial step to using rigidbody.addForce is you need to take the object that you want to add the force to and make sure that it is a rigid body. So go ahead and click Add Component and type in rigid body. And if you're making a 2D game, it would be rigid body 2D down here. Alright, so once you've done that, go ahead and open a C# script. And the first thing we're going to want to do is instantiate a rigid body. So we'll say public rigid body RB. You can call that whenever you want. And then in the start area, you're going to want to say RB, or rigid body RB equals get component rigid body. So what this does is it searches the component that the script is attached to and finds the rigid body that we just attached to it and connects that to our variable RB. So now in the update, we can say rb.addForce, and then here we have a vector3 parameter. So we'll have 3 parameters, our x, our y, and our z. But for our z value, because that's the direction I want him to move on, you can choose any of these values. If you want him to launch up in the air, that would be the y value. So I'm going to use the z value here and change this to our speed. So we'll go ahead here and say private float speed equals, and we'll increase this one a little bit. We'll say 7.0 f. And over here we'll say, we'll make little brackets and say speed times time.delta time. And then this also has an interesting 4th parameter, and that one is force mode. So it already auto-filled it in for us here. So if we click force mode dot, we have a bunch of options here. We have acceleration, force, impulse, and velocity change. Now, dependent upon how you want force to be applied to your object, depends upon which one of these you want to use. So acceleration would be like a race car. So it starts off a little slower and accelerates into its speed. And force is actually going to be pretty much the same thing as acceleration, but the only difference is this, you can use force to push a heavier object than acceleration would. Impulse will be like hitting a baseball off of a bat. You just get that instant response. And then velocity change is simply if you want to change the velocity. So I'm going to go ahead and use acceleration for an example. And then if we hop into Unity, we need to make sure that our script is attached to the object we want to use. And then go ahead and assign the rigid body down here. You can just drag the player on and it will find the rigid body for you. And then if we go ahead and push play, oh, looks like my character is backwards. So if this happens to you, just go ahead and hop back into Visual Studios and we can simply just make this negative speed. Save the script and hop back in. And now he's moving forwards, and it is pretty slow, but he is picking up speed because he's accelerating. So one other thing I forgot to mention is if you are dealing with rigid bodies, instead of putting this code in the update, you're going to want to actually put it in a fixed update. And this works similar to time.delta time by helping it keep it frame rate independent. Alright, so the last one I want to talk about here is character controller. Now, I'm not going to go too into depth on character controller today because it is a pretty complex topic, but it is very useful. There's plenty of helpful videos out there to help you see how to line this up and use it in your game. I'm just going to tell you today what it is and why you should use it. So, if we go ahead and hop into Unity and we find our player, we can click Add Component, and add a character controller. Alright, once you've done that, go ahead and hop into a C# script and type in public character controller and I'm just calling mine CC. And then after that's done, you can say, like the rigid body, CC equals, or we can go ahead, we could say character controller. Character controller CC equals get component character controller. Oh. So like I said, I'm not going to go too much into depth on this, but character controller has a lot of helpful things, like character controller dot is grounded. You can use to check if the player is touching the ground or if they're jumping, so you can change the speed that they're allowed to move. You can also do cc dot move, and that is a function designed to help your player move. So character controller is definitely the way to go if you're talking about a script to attach to your player in maybe a FPS game or an RPG game. Character controller is really made to be your character controller. It's a great thing to use to move your player around, and I would highly recommend getting familiar with character controller and using the other types of movements as you need them. Alright guys, that pretty much wraps up our video on movement in Unity. If you'd like me to make a full video on character controller, I can do that. And I'll be making one on jumping in Unity very soon. Anyway guys, thanks for checking out Gopherwood, and I'll see you guys next time.